if
This meeting is being recorded.
right, so we've got a few people. Maybe if you could put yourself on mute for the moment, just so we can get through some of the content, and then when we'll finish the slides, we can then open it up and we can have an open chat. But I'd say if you keep on mute for the moment, it'll just stop all the feedback and it'll make it clearer for us all to be able to listen. And I realise I'm looking at the wrong camera here. Right. So thank you all for coming. This is about Tenant Pulse. It's about rent setting, a really topical subject at the moment. And we felt it was in consultation with Welsh Government that we needed to do this, and we wanted to do this fast. So I'm going to share some slides, as you'd expect from a TPAS event. Let me just, and all these will be available if people want them afterwards. I will just switch these around. Okay. I'm hoping you can see that now. Ellen, can you give me a thumbs up? Yeah, lovely. So welcome. This is a Tenant Pulse on rent setting. The report just went live in the last half an hour on our website, and I'll give you links to that later. I'd like to just introduce the two of us. Eleanor here is a co-author of this. We worked together on this. We developed it, the marketing, the analysis, and the write-up. So I'll probably do more of the talking today. But as I say, I want to make clear, Eleanor has worked on this really hard, and the two of us are really quite pleased with this report. I'd also like to say thanks to our sponsors, funders. We're part funded by Welsh Government, and Pobl Group are our tenant voice sponsor in this work, and it helps pay for some of the marketing and some of the platform that we use for this. I'm really grateful for them. This is a real subject at the moment, really topical: rent freezes, what rent should be going up for. A lot of different voices at the moment, lots of misunderstanding as well, and headlines that can be quite inflammatory as well. I saw this one: landlord's joy as Welsh Parliament puts kibosh on rent freeze. It's a really interesting. We saw protests over the weekend in England, outside local authorities, particularly about rent rises. So this is something that TPAS have been involved in for a while, and we've been running a few events recently. So some of you may have come to the rent consultation event last week, which is about learning about from others case studies on how maybe to do better rent consultations. Today we've got the brief. We're also running some sessions about how landlords work financially. I don't think the sectors as a whole has done well enough on this, so explaining how rent is raised and how revenue is raised in a housing association and local authority, and how it's spent. So we've got CHC, and I think it's United Welsh have volunteered to take housing association tenants through that, and we're just trying to arrange something with local authority to run something around how local authority finance and income and expenditure works. And we also want to do more about how to engage, be more accountable and transparent in this as well. So some of you have seen this, some of you were at their event last week, a popular one. For those not familiar with Tenant Pulse is the national platform used in Wales to enable tenants to have their say anonymously on subjects that matter to them around the homes community. It's been going about 5 years now, I think, and we do some annual ones, and we do some specific topic ones like this one, and we also have some specific audiences as well. So, we've done ones before on private rental sector, just in North Wales. I think David Lloyd's got a private rental one at the moment on something else. So I say Pulse is there to get that tenant voice into decision making, and all the reports are on our website should you wish to have a look at them. So the origin of this report really came around with tenants, wider society experiencing this cost of living crisis, consumer price inflation, and it's a hot topic at the moment. And landlords rightly saying that they need to raise rent to maintain services. This isn't about more healthier bank balances for them and things. The services they provide are really under pressure, depending on how rent setting is going to be going forward. We've seen moves from the Scottish Government as well around legislation to allow them to intervene in this. And so after discussion with the Welsh Government, we launched this Pulse survey to get tenants' views on the services they provide and what it means to tenants. And Eleanor, we saw a lot of different comments, didn't we?
Yeah, this is just a few of the comments from across the survey from tenants directly. We haven't edited these. These are pure comments from them. I'll just probably give you a moment to read them. But one that really stuck with me was like, we are tenants, our voices need to be heard. And that's something that really comes through the whole report, as we'll come on to in a moment.
Yeah. And there was 4 themes, wasn't it, really, that came out? Yes,
like this says, there's 4 themes that came out of the report from every response. One about social welfare payments seem to be rising in line with inflation. As rents rise, a lot of people who are using social welfare payments to pay their rent want to see this in line, but otherwise they're going to end up in poverty or in having a negative impact on themselves. The second comment we had was about relationships with landlords. And I know it's something that all landlords and tenants are working really hard at the moment across the sector. But they want especially to build on transparency and communication about where money is going. The third comment we had was about changes being put into practice with consultation with tenants. So tenants want to be involved in any changes and know why and where this is happening. And at the end of the day, they want to feel heard, and we understand that. The last theme that we really came across in our report was about salary, and those tenants who are working and having a salary paying their rent, they want to see this in rise with rents rising as well. But of course, the timing of the moment, we're not really going to see that until possibly March or the end of the financial year. So that's something that's really holding on to tenants' anxieties at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So I've just lost my. And so research-wise, some of you familiar with Pulse. There was an online survey that we sent out based on a database that we have. But we also used some focus groups this time as well. We wanted to get behind some of those questions, and it really helped, I think, bring some further depth to this report, so that we were able to get from tenants a bit more around why they answered certain ways. And so the survey was run, it was only 4 days, 5 days. It was the shortest Pulse we've ever done, but it was driven by these deadlines. The decisions and conversations happening now. There are meetings this afternoon, there's meetings last week. A lot of things happening at the moment with Welsh Government around rent setting, and we realised we wanted that tenant voice in that discussion right now, and we didn't have a lot of time, and we wanted to get that straight in. And I've discussed this report already with Welsh Government. Sorry? Nope, I don't know what that was.
So go ahead, David, interference.
Okay. And as I say, it was to make, and Welsh Government were really receptive and pleased and thankful for the tenants who filled in this report, and as I say, their voice has been heard in the discussions. So how the survey was promoted, as I said already, it was to social housing tenants. We excluded PRS. This was not a survey about them. Alan, was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, promotion, as a tool that we've used in social media and the Pulse database, and then again, our tenant networks as well. We're really thankful for those we've built through our work in the last couple of years. Like David said, we have social media campaigns, and our social media campaigns are bilingual, and they focus on Instagram and Facebook. Oh, really? Sorry, thanks, David. So we put it out on Instagram and Facebook this year, as well as Twitter. For this campaign, we did it kind of snapshot nature, so we did it over 3 or 4 days. So that's a bit different to our past campaigns, but we really felt and tenants' voices were heard as we got responses from every local authority. So as you can see, as an example of the social media campaign we just put out. Unfortunately, we had issues this year with our Instagram campaigns that we did not advertise this year. This was all pure responses from our work, not from paid advertisements. Yeah. But we had a really fantastic response over the 3 days.
Yeah. As you can see there.
We had a 353 tenants respond to the survey in 4 days, which is amazing. And that included actually a weekend, so they weren't all working days. So we were really pleased with that. And then we had 2 focus groups with 16 tenants each. So that made 369 voices heard in the report. So we're really thrilled with that. And like I said, it represented every local authority and every age group as well.
Good. So should we get on with the survey analysis? I'm sure you're dying to know what was said in this report. We'll do some basics first, which was what type of tenants are you? It's really important for the filtering and the analysis. And although this time it was 72% housing association and 23% local authority, it actually didn't make much of a difference in the answers. When we filtered, sometimes housing association and authorities, tenants have very different views. This time, and you'll see in the detailed report, as you download it, actually there wasn't much of a difference on the subject of rent. They're always in different topics. But on this one, as I say, they were very, very aligned in this, in terms of what they thought. And in terms of areas, again, you see big high response rates in the big populous areas, Rhondda, Conant Ave, Newport, Swansea. And that reflects there's probably 8 different housing associations in Rhondda, Conant Ave. And local authorities, again, Vale, Glamorgan, Powys, Swansea. I do think some of the local authority responses are based on how much the local authority themselves promoted to their tenants. So, probably careful, Dave O'Connor's in the room, but Powys not the biggest populous area of the world, of Wales, but because they are active in promoting their tenant engagement and the pulse for us and things like that, we get a much higher response from Powys, say, than maybe other areas. And the lowest areas, Merthyr Tydfil is always a low one, it's a small local authority, and there's a little bit up that northeast Wales where I'd like us to like to see better response rate around, yeah, say Denbighshire, Flintshire, things like that. And the age, I think, is typical of who responds to these surveys. I'd like to have seen a bit more in the 1830s. Some of you are familiar with Pulse stuff, but Instagram wouldn't allow these adverts this time. And that's something that was a bit frustrating, but a good range. And if I also see, and here, we also asked people if they had any, did it belong to any of the households that had underrepresented groups in them? And you can see here, that's probably a bit higher than social housing as generally. There's certainly 3% disability. Some of these categories did make a difference when we filtered. They had very much, if you don't have English or Welsh as your first language, they responded very differently to some of them, and we'll cover that later. Equally, LGBTQ plus on this subject didn't really make a difference. They responded pretty much in line with the overall population. But it was something we take seriously, and we filter on trying to look for those areas where people aren't comfortable or feel have very much different views. And the main source of income as well. Again, probably as you'd expect, universal credit, retirement income, and then a combination of salary and supplementary benefits. We purposely weren't targeting PRS this time, and we weren't targeting students or anything like that. So that's why you'll see training and education low. I think they have a different financial model, a different expectation, and we were looking for that longer term social housing tenant view. Other is higher than expected, and the truth was we probably should have had another category in there around people in the gig economy, people in unsecure or multiple type jobs. You're familiar with the term gig economy, and when we looked at the comments in later, that pretty much the other category is a lot of people in very insecure multiple job income. And really, I think we did this again, we would make that a formal category. And that's why you see differences here. This is your main source of household income. Under 30s, you see a lot more of that working and other compared to, you wouldn't expect any pensioners under 30. And therefore, that's why that differentiation is really important when we filter on this, and why the full report is worth reading, because you'll see breaking down the whole population and then seeing how different people respond. So one of the first things we asked them was, do you consider your rent affordable at present? And actually 58% said yes. I say a worrying 31 no, and 11% non-applicable. That was certainly people who, if they were receiving benefit or were having their rent paid for them, they put in non-applicable. So I don't know if that's a big surprise, but certainly 58% saying yes at the moment and 31% no. And I know a lot of you landlords have done work on affordability, and it feels like there's going to be a lot more to do on this subject. There is in the report a lot more. You can see there's whole tables of which type of people felt it was more affordable than others. And strangely, because it'll vary later on, but one of the highest percentage of who thought it was affordable now was the 18 to 30, and in terms of age group. But as I say, I'm not going to dwell on all that because some of you will have interest. Some of you might work on policy regarding older people or younger people engagement. There's a lot more in the report you can read and look at which type of people can afford this or not. But as you'd expect, the concern has always been is with benefits, are they going to uplift at the same time to reflect rent rises and the working population? How much will they suffer as they go forward, and how much more pressure will be on them? So one of the questions we asked people was around, in England, there's a consultation, around 3, 5, 7% rise. And because inflation is around 10 at the moment. And so we said, that's 5%. How comfortable would you be paying that rise? It's a lot to take in this graph. Bear with me on this. So the red line is all responders. How comfortable would they be? And you can see that 18% saying I could pay 5%. The condition I think was much more interesting later on was this: I could pay if my landlord was clearer where the money was going. And then, as you'd expect in Wales in social housing, there's a percentage can pay if universal credit or pensions are also uplifted by a similar amount or more. And there was certainly, that came in the focus groups. So certainly pensioners, people receiving benefits are like, if it's adjusted, then okay, but we don't know that yet. And then to say they're fairly consistent across housing associations, local authorities on the, I could not pay an additional rise or I'm already in arrears. And that's the area we need to be concerned about, I think, at the moment. So what did the analysis show? The 18 to 30 were the people who said they were already in arrears. That's quite a high figure. And as you expect with any surveys, it's always the more people who are either happier or unhappy. And it's trying sometimes to get that middle ground is always challenging. Anyone who does polling of tenants on their views, but 22% saying they're already in arrears compared to an average of 5%. And a much higher 34% saying they couldn't pay a rise. So that's certainly one of the findings, that 18 to 30 range. The over 60s were more comfortable if pensions or support benefits get an appropriate uplift, like the triple lock. I don't think that's any big surprise to anybody who works in policy around here in Wales. As say, if the pensions are adjusted, then there's more comfort that they could absorb a rise. And none of them will claim to be in arrears as well. And finally, number 3, household income source does make a difference. I say 81% there of universal credit recipients comfortable to pay 5% increase if universal credit is uplifted. Same with pensioners. And it just goes down lower and lower then if you're paying self-payers, as a term sometimes used in policy, people who are paying it out of their salary, and then that gig economy, they get less and less comfortable about it. And I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. And it's something we're going to have to think about, that type of support that might be needed as we go forward in a high inflation period. Because this is not just a 1-year thing. We could be looking at a couple of years like this. So some of the comments, Eleanor, reflected that, didn't it?
Yeah, the comments really reflect that, especially about working tenants and them absorbing a salary increase as well. And then about an uplift in welfare payments being the crucial thing about people in recipient of them being able to afford it.
Yeah, and I think that third line there, as long as the service is placed and then we're given a genuine reason for rent to increase, then it has to be paid. And I think that came across a number of times in the comments, doesn't it? That you need to explain to us why they need to be increased and what we get for that. or what maintains, and if it makes sense, fine, you know. I don't think maybe as a sector we've done enough of that during the low inflation years. I've really explained in that situation.
I'd like to comment on the end there. There's a lot of comments we had about rents now rising in line with the PRS sector, and they wanted to know why.
Yeah. So one of the things we did purposely was we asked people about what they were concerned about cutting, and you'll see there, we haven't put all the question in there, was we purposely didn't put repairs and maintenance in there, because quite frankly, repairs, if you do any, I've seen so many tenant surveys that landlords do, and ask them what do they value, and all you get is a stating the obvious graph. You get 99% of people saying repairs and maintenance, and then everything else is under like almost another, and that doesn't add any value. You should be doing repairs and maintenance as a landlord. That's a basic obligation, and therefore what we wanted to look at was the other things landlords do, because social landlords do amazing stuff and do incredible services, and we want to look at what do they value and what didn't they value, or what was important to them, apart, as well as that basic thing. And that's why you'll see there's no repairs, maintenance type stuff in this question here. It's that what else would you be most concerned about? And no big surprise in the current energy crisis we're in, cost of living crisis, that the highest was they were most concerned about cutting energy improvement projects. Big support there for that. The second one there, care and support, I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's overstated. When we started looking at the comments in there, I don't think we were clear enough what care and support services was. We were talking about landlords' care and support services, but actually in the comments, people were confusing it to the wider NHS, care, social services, things like that. So I put in it, we put in the report. I would take that particular care and support category with a pinch of salt, because I think it was a failing in the question wording and people misinterpreting what that was. And we take that on board. So when you come then further down, you get to that building home, money advice, community improvements. I don't know whether it's any big surprise to anybody, the categories here. But what is different, what is going to be in the next slide or two, is big difference of opinion on how they value it, depending on their age or their circumstances. So we've said already, I think I've just said that, energy crisis, tenants value energy saving initiatives. Care and support, I think, was overstated. But age is what is key to what tenants value here. It was quite clear in the commentary and the statistics was younger people significantly value money advice. That's nearly double the overall pot. And training opportunities, again, 33% compared to 9%. And this goes back to the services you're providing. Who are they aimed at? And are you reaching the people who really value them or need them? I say over 60s were the opposite. Very low value of money advice and training services, as you'd expect, you know. And younger people saw less value in community improvement and regeneration. I did wonder when I looked at some of the comments in that, whether they really understood about community improvement or regeneration. Or do you see in the news, I know my local authority, you know, a lot of money and anguish being spent over a shelter. And if you're a younger person, is that something that's a real concern to you at the moment? I wonder whether community improvements really is selling themselves and showing the value to people at the moment. And community improvement, as you expect, peaks in that middle-age bracket, where neighbourhoods, ASB, a lot of them were parents as well, and mentioned about children and things like that. And most age groups barely moved above the average for new homes. New homes hangs around there about 29%. When you filter on all the categories, pretty much it stays the same, except younger people who valued it less. I find that a bit surprising. But again, whether they think they would have access to it, or whether they are already in social housing, therefore they're answering the survey, and it's of less value to them compared to their own circumstances at the moment, which could be quite challenging. So there's a number of things in there. There's a lot more detail in the report on that. And also, when we filtered on underrepresented groups, as I say, sometimes it didn't make a difference. but on some it did. So tenants are identified as coming from a BAME background, strongly value training opportunities. Again, that's what, 3 times higher than the average. Tenants with disabilities valued energy saving initiatives. Again, I don't think that was a big surprise to me, because I think certain people with disabilities are home more based or home working based, and therefore energy bills is a bigger consideration. And tenants identified as English or Welsh not being their first language, again, strongly valued training and money advice. So some big differences there. And again, it goes back to who we targeting with these services. Doesn't need to be targeted to everybody, and therefore could we see more benefit for our budgets in targeting the people who really value and appreciate it. And again, on household income, we didn't see a lot difference on that. And I think it's really important to say that when we don't see differences. So people on universal credit pretty much followed the collective pool when it comes to what they valued of the services landlords provided. As I say, the only difference was that salaried individuals, people who are valued money advice higher and training opportunities. And you do start wondering, the people who, there's younger people and people on salary and or the gig economy, both valuing money advice and training opportunities. Are they the same people? And there's some further work we can do on that. And retired tenants valuing energy saving projects may be higher than the average. Again, is that they're more at home? Do they feel the cold more? Again, so it's again different sections or different profiles valuing services differently. Social landlords, as you know, have submitted evidence to Welsh Government that if rents aren't increased, there'll be a lot less money to spend on services. And so we asked them, what would you set the rent at? Now, it's no big surprise if you ask anybody what you want your bills to go up by, they're going to say 0, aren't they? That's human nature. And I think what came out of it was the difference between the survey and the focus groups. And I think this is a key lesson for landlords, was in the focus groups, we were able to talk a bit more about cost and the impact and things like that. And when you started explain to people the impact it would have, the higher the acceptance was then of, maybe rent does need to go up. Oh, I don't want that cut. Oh no, I'd find the money because that would be detrimental to me. And the more conversation we had, the more people were more likely to understand or to accept a higher rent rise. So again, no big surprise there when you ask people what it should be without maybe the context and the explanation. What we did see in the filter was those who can afford it now are more agreeable to a higher rent rise. Not a big surprise there, as I say. But those who can't afford now and are struggling and are less agreeable to rent rise. I know I'm stating the obvious there, but I think it's really important that who's the people who are struggling now and how are they going to manage as we go forward. And there is, again, in the report, don't try and read this slide now. There's a lot more detail in there where we start segmenting on which ages, which household incomes felt about different rises. And there's some real differences there. As you can see, some of them are even double other response rates. So it's more in the report for those who are interested in that type of detail. We did have a question there about, because we kept seeing this conversation about, we want more information about rent setting, what it means, what the different levels mean. Because we wanted to do that originally in this survey, ask people what percentage and what it would mean, and nobody in the time frame within the sector could really explain that to us well enough, that 7% would mean this, 5% would mean that, and the difference. Because obviously each landlord's different, each local authority is different in terms of what it would mean in protecting or cutting services. So we asked them, would you attend, would you like to know more? Would you accompany these events? And a resounding yes. And not something you would be particularly surprised at. People wanted to be part of that conversation about rent rises and what it means, but there were some differences. So the highest category in all the 30 plus filters that we ran on, age, household income, and represented groups, things like that, a BAME background came up the highest of being wanting to be involved. I think it was nearly 90% compared to 68. However, one of the lowest categories of terms of feeling comfortable and wanting to be involved was those who identified as English or Welsh not being their first language. So the idea of people who haven't got strong English or Welsh coming to a town hall type meeting or joining an online event like this, that was one of the lowest categories. And so how can they have their say? How can they engage without being in a sort of town hall style event? I think is something that we literally was talking to a landlord on Friday about, because some landlords are already engaged with us at the moment, looking at this and how they can do their rent setting and rent consultations and communication better. And so one of the last questions as well we asked them was, is there anything else you'd like to say about rent setting to the minister or to consider? And Eleanor, I think we've covered these at the beginning, didn't we?
Yeah, the same 4 themes really emerged from it, and we had, I think it was, near 200 written responses to go through, so we aren't able to share them today, but it's more in the report, and these themes of what's came out.
Yeah. So these are in the report, I say, and there were some quotes as well, I think were interesting, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. We want to be heard, welfare needs to rise, we want to be consulted. Private rental doesn't need to be what we need to end up as. And communication is key and transparency is key. And that's really what came through all the responses. Yeah.
And more transparency about why rent, increases are required and how each business is reducing their own costs. Believe me, we could have filled pages and pages of tenants commenting on board pay and things like that. There were a lot of things like, well, there's 120k they could save. Tenants haven't been fully on board on that initiative, I'll be honest. And we see a lot of negativity on that subject. I know 120k to a lot of us is a drop in the ocean, is not going to solve anything, but be aware I think it's like that, we're in it together. Well, what else are the organizations doing to reduce their own head office costs and operational costs and things like that? So yeah, pages and pages of that we've got if anyone's interested. I'm conscious of time, so the recommendations, I think if you've been listening, hopefully this won't be a surprise, but rents need to be affordable and set in consultation with tenants. Consultation to hear from a wide range, diverse range of tenants, and might need different techniques to reach different people. Landlords be open and transparent about their rent setting. I think, as I say, this has crept up, but it's a big issue, and we could be in for a couple of tough years on this. And if you're expecting tenants to take on, larger rent rises and things like that, then that open and transparency, I think, is really important. And value for money. David Lloyd does a lot of stuff with landlords around value for money, demonstrating it, how to get involved tenants in measuring value for money, and also supporting tenants. No point just, oh, well, we gave it to our tenant group and they were fine with it. It's, are those tenants supported and trained and enabled to scrutinize rent setting proposals and decisions? And so I say they're the recommendations that really we want to see going forward. And we're working with people and anybody who wants to do better at this. So our report is on our website now. It's there, English and Welsh, you'll be able to see it. Social media channels, if you want to join in the debate, we'll probably put the links to the report on social media today. I think Alan's got a TikTok planned, trying to break it down in a minute. And that's really what we wanted to say and open it up to some discussion. And there will be some feedback forms, but we'll do that at the end. We've rushed through that because I felt that people would want to have comments, want to have say. I can see that popping up. Lucy, can we have a copy of the slides as well, please? Yes. We've got a page with the report on. What I might do is add a link to the slides after this session now, so that on the website page, you can download the report, you can download the slides, then I don't see why, unless you've got any objections, why we don't put a recording as well, a link as well. So it's all on one page together. And if you want to show any of this, share anything in a tenant group, if you want us to come along and do, which we've done before, to discuss it with a tenant group, or even a senior leadership team, all together. I think Carmarthen, you might be out there today. You had us come down after a tenant pulse like this, where we addressed elected members, tenants and officers together. So yeah, we want this conversation, and we want to help you and support. Is there, I can't see the comments at the moment. Is there anything, Eleanor, you've seen that?
Nothing come through yet, but we have a few hands up. Peter Deacon, hi.
Hi, Peter.
Hello, David. I was interested on the younger tenants asking for advice. When I went through the DWP mill, you had no idea as to what you could claim. Now, yes, with rents, it's going outside the remit, if you see what I mean, on a general sense. But if the tenants are feeling better off because they now know what to claim, they're more likely to pay the rents. So it's a possible win-win situation if landlords do give some help to tenants to know what to apply for when they go through the DWP mill.
I don't think it's just universal credit DWP. It could be how do food banks work? How do different schemes, financial advice, a variety of different ways. And we make an assumption people know that, or they've read your tenant magazine. We know those tenant magazines have an older readership. It's how we communicate to those younger people, and they were saying they really value that financial advice. And that's the sort of thing we don't want to lose, do we, in going forward? Dave, I can see your hand up. Sorry, apologies if anyone else is waiting, but I can see Dave Roberts there.
Yeah, just echoing what Peter was saying. Something we've all known is the under 30s don't really engage. This is the first time I've actually seen a quantifiable metric for it, is that the under 30s are the ones that are highest in arrears. They're the ones people will say, oh, well, they don't have the life experience. They don't have this, that, and the other. Fact is, we live in a very different world now. It's a cultural thing. You can't hit the under 30s the same way you can hit the over 60s. Like you say, they're more likely to respond to leaflets, mail, all the rest of it. The under 30s, we spoke about this last week, just flick there on the phone, and that's how they want to communicate. It's appropriate communication with your target demographic. The way things are going, like you said, we're in for a really rough couple of years or more, and we need to get the right information and right support to the people who need it. And the way that I feel a lot of it's done isn't as progressive as it could be. We need to be. It's great saying that, oh, you can. It's like you've hit the wall with Instagram adverts this year, but it's probably the first time that you've had something like that happen. They've decided, no, you're not allowed to do that. But you've managed to get around it with other social media platforms, which is really good to see. Rather than sort of saying, well, we've got this one, we've got a mailing list you can sign up to, which is great. But I'll be honest, I get so many junk emails, it hits the spam filter and it gets fried. So it's got to be irrelevant, especially if you're seeing that there's one age group or one demographic that needs a certain level of support or a certain type of support. That's how you want to go about it. Like you said, it's a relationship, like somebody said on the slide. It's got to go two ways. It's not all about what's easiest for the landlord or what's easiest for the tenant. It's got to be in the middle somewhere.
I agree. If I can pick up on that, the Instagram thing, was what happened is we use Instagram adverts really well to reach younger people. This time, Instagram banned the advert because we'd mentioned Welsh Government, and there's issues now with what's called political advertising or lobbying. And Eleanor submitted, I think, 5 versions to Instagram, and they rejected them all. We've learned from it, and next time we wouldn't make that connection with Welsh Government and rent setting. It's just working with the Instagram rules, Meta it is, and we fell foul of it this time, and we'll do differently and better next time. as we have in the past. So, but I think that was one thing I can't remember because I've whizzed through these slides so many times now, was the under 30s were the people who said in the highest amount, we could pay if you explain why the rent rise. And they were the ones who wanted the most transparency on why. There's a certain amount of over 60s who had much more trust in the landlord, and were over 60s had much more trust of, I know things are tough, I trust them to do the right thing. The under 30s are the audience who go, well, I'm finding it tough, you've got to explain why, you know. And I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. Anybody else got hands or comments they'd like to say? There's so many of you, I can't see everybody.
Hi, Sue Mackey.
Oh yeah, can I just say, amazing piece of work. It's really good to see so much information so clearly presented. Yeah, got to go away and think about what to do with it now. But it's, you know, it's because I work in community development, so it's interesting to see that is valued but not valued, you know. So it's I think there's lots and lots of questions we need to be asking now as to, you know, we think we know what's important to tenants, but tenants are actually saying, no, this is what's important to us. So yeah, I mean, we did a consultation last week, and you're right, if you explain, most people end up going, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that, yeah, you know, then it is value for money. So yeah, it's a but great piece of work. Thank you. Looking forward to
thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
And you're right. I think it's like anything in life, you know, we probably, as a sector, I think I've said, I just think we didn't do enough of it over the last 10 years. And now that it's starting to bite a bit, there's a bit of catching up to do, I think, and explaining where it all goes.
There's a really good comment from Dave O'Connor in the chat about how tenant reps were consulted with his landlord regarding rent increases. Unfortunately, there was not time to receive feedback to suggestions, as support had to go to cabinet. But next year, hopefully, they'll be consulted again. And
I think that's an issue, isn't it? Some of these decisions, and certainly local authorities, are happening now. And that's why we couldn't wait too long on Tenant Pulse. Local housing associations, I think, are waiting more for the minister's announcement, but are running their own numbers. And it's going to be, we expect an announcement, I think, from the minister by the end of the month. I don't know if that's just sector rumour, but that will determine, I think, a lot of people's rent strategy. Peter, I can see your hand up there.
It's not a rumour. The minister's meant to give that time frame, basically because it takes an RSL something like 2 to 3 months to actually work out what they can do and not do within the time frame before the beginning of the next financial year. So yes, he's got to do it sometime before Christmas at least.
With Rented Homes Act as well, there's notice periods now that are longer than they used to be, you know, and it's going to be an interesting one.
Just a note to say that if you're interested in this topic, our next event will be on the 10th of November. With CHC and United Welsh, I believe. And they're going to take come along.
This is an event I think we're doing for the whole of Wales, but I think should be happening everywhere, which is CHC and United Welsh volunteer to sort of explain housing association finance, housing association costs as a general whole and how it all works. And I think that'd be really important for people to get a better understanding of it. And we'll run the same then for local authorities, transparency. There must be more than this. I've rushed through the slides purposely to give you more chance to chat.
I can't see any other hands up right now. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to contribute?
No. Okay.
Wow.
I hope you found this of use. I need to thank Eleanor. She did incredibly hard work and fast to turn this around and the analysis, all the number crunching and stuff. So we're grateful. It's on our website. I think there should be a link. Can we put it in the side?
It's in the chat, yes. And I'll email that out again this afternoon.
Good. We'll add everything onto that page, the slides, the video and things like that. And I say, if you want us to come to any groups online, face to face, very happy to, and talk about this in more detail. Okay, I think we're done. Everyone just wants their tea, their lunch, don't they?